What's going on, guys? Big Mike, D717 Outlaw back with here. Finally getting back into it here. Been working on a lot of side projects. I've had a project going on at home. Pretty much got it buttoned up. And we've just been doing real little things here and there, trying to clean up the shop. The weather and my work schedule has pretty much been killing it because it's either we have rain, we have snow, I have overtime, or we have snow. And today, it's probably going to be a brutal video for me because of what I want to do in this video. I have to go back outside. It's nice having a heated garage because I can kind of take advantage of being in the warmth for a bit. But the video we're doing here today, real quick, we'll get into a couple little tweaks I've been working on the Busa, and we can kind of snowball it into what we're going to be doing here today. So, I've been tinkering around with the Busa. I got my new Tiger Racing undertail, so I've been working on trying to cut away a little bit of stuff. I got to get my Velcro, get my ECU down, get the air shifter box, the kill box mounted, get our compressor done. I managed to get the launch box, use these. I've been starting to get into the hang of using these riv nuts, putting them in. Been pretty nice. This stuff is not going anywhere. I did my distribution blocks down there with it as well. Trying to work on these new wheels, RC component wheels. I'm going to hopefully be getting new sprockets and bearings for these. Pinky, same as she was before. Haven't really messed with it much. I have it on the charger, so hopefully we can start this today. Mickey's bike. Haven't been doing a crazy amount with this bike, at least for me. Mickey's been working on this in the background. He tidied up a lot of wiring, got some things hooked up, things taken off that he doesn't need. This bike is pretty much a clutch and a new tire away from being ready for the season. Most of his stuff was just tidying up. The previous owner of the bike, the original owner, had this bike dead set on winning. I think it won like 2 titles. Owner after that kind of ran it for like a season and a half and just didn't seem like he could get everything to happen. The bike was set up, but he couldn't get the consistency that the previous owner had. So Mickey went through, tidied everything up, redid a lot of the wiring, trying to clean everything up as best he can, running all new lighting, things like that. We have all of his 2-step hooked up. He did get the oil pressure gauge on, which, these gauges to me are pretty dope. Oil pressure, you have nitrous pressure. It's got fancy blue lights to match everything. This bike's pretty well set up. I really like how it's set up. He does have this stuff here for nitrous, but unfortunately, because of the way the season looks like it's lining up, especially with timing and things like that, we did end up pulling the spray bar and the solenoid off because one previous owner busted something out of the side of this solenoid and we can't get this hooked up. These solenoids apparently were on back order and just don't really have the funds to go get a new solenoid. And I think Mickey's going a different route with the style of sprayer. We're going to be getting a different type of spray bar. What else did we work on this? It's not a 24-volt system anymore. We took it back to just one battery because the 24-volt literally only had... It didn't have anything hooked up to the battery. It was intended to be a built motor, so it had dual batteries, but with no intention for at least another year to do it. Might as well just take the battery out, less weight, things like that. But got a lot of stuff tidied up, ready to go on Mickey's, and working on a little project. Got my new apes for the Harley. I got to get that buttoned up at some point. But let's get on to the meat and potatoes of the video and talk about that component right there. We're going to talk about slider clutches. All right, guys. Well, diving into it here on Pinky or Pink Floyd. Somebody commented in one of the videos. We're talking about the slider clutch that is on this. So biggest thing I want to say when it comes to a slider versus a Gen 2, which I think is technically a hand slider, the slider does not use a clutch lever. The lever on this is literally just for the clutch switch to start the bike. That's all that the lever's for. This almost acts like a centrifugal that you would see on like a go-kart, a snowmobile, which is the higher the RPMs, the more the clutch works, or it takes a certain RPM to activate the clutch. So on the bike, I can start it, put it in gear, it will not go anywhere until I have preset springs on the top hat of the clutch. When the RPMs go above a certain range, those springs compress and they start to press on the clutch. So I'm actually going to try to pull that front cover off and show you guys a little bit of the mechanism in there. And hopefully we can get an explanation on how these work, because I know some people don't know how these clutches work at all. So see if I can get a little bit of an explanation for you. Coming in here, so the springs that I have set are supposed to be for 4,000 RPM launch. So pretty much what happens is these springs are tensioned to go against these weights. So these little L-shaped arms with weights, which the nut and the bolt are typical, but you change the weight based on these washers. You can see how every other one has a different weight. These two are the same, these two are the same. So typically it's 1, 2, 3 the same, 1, 2, 3 are the same. So what happens is this is kind of a multi-stage. So the clutch, as it spins, when the clutch isn't spinning, these arms are just kind of resting in here. As the clutch spins and spins and spins, that arm goes in, presses the clutch plates together, and slowly starts adding more and more pressure. So this, being lighter, is going to typically engage a little bit like softer, and then as the RPM gets higher, these ones will start to grab even more. So as the clutch is spinning, these are all going out and just gradually applying more and more pressure. So for me, for the application of boost, the higher your RPMs are, the more pressure or the more centrifugal force, the more force is put on your plate. So it's less likely to spin the clutch at higher RPMs as it is to lower. But this helps in the aspect of sliding the clutch better. So all you have to do in this is RPM based. Again, the bike can idle, but once the RPMs go up, then the clutch plates start going and pushing together. So now you can modify how you want it to come in and how fast, how gradual, anything like that by changing up your weights and changing up your springs. Now, most clutches, if you get them new out of the box, come with a tuning kit that typically has all the different weights. Typically the weights, there's only 2 sizes. You just alternate how you want them set up. The nuts and bolts are typically the same, and then you'll change these springs. So the springs are basically your idle, and then your weight combo is how you want it to increase. Do you want it to come in faster? Do you want your 60 foot to be drug out further? You basically do the tuning based on either your ride setup, your ride style, or if you're just trying to cut down a really, really tight 60 foot, you want to modify this on how all this is engaging at what speed. So that kind of gets the gist of how the clutch itself works, is these arms are just applying pressure at different RPMs and things like that. And like I said, the springs have a lot to do with it. So these 3 lighter arms along with the spring are what initiates the clutch. Then these heavier ones come in behind it and kind of lock the clutch up, almost like a converter in a car. Once these lock in, it helps really grab that clutch and help you down the track. So now that we have this, I'm going to kind of explain a little bit, because there's an additional piece on here, which is the ride back device, which is air powered in my case. Kind of explain a little bit as to what this does. Well, guys, besides kind of freezing outside right now, because it's like 10 degrees, that kind of shows you a little bit as to how these things work. So for me, one, I was doing a burnout in second gear. That's why there was a lot of wheel speed and a lot of smoke. Heats up the tire really quick, doesn't have to do a crazy burnout. I found out most guys do that to save on heat on the motor. So instead of having to do a low gear, like first gear, low speed burnout, do second gear, gets the heat fast, and then coast up to the line, pop it back into first, and you're ready to go. I hope some of what I covered was a little bit easy of a demonstration for it. It really acts like a centrifugal clutch on a scooter, a snowmobile, something like that, to where it won't move unless you have RPM in the motor. Like, even, and then with the ride back device, like I said, a lot of them are hydraulic, some are air. Pretty much what happens is just you set the RPM. There is a little piece in the tail that you can set the preferred range to where that clutch engages. So like for this one, it's 200 RPM above idle is when the clutch starts to engage and will start pulling you. So it kind of works for moving around in the pits. If you don't have a ride back for a slider, you're gonna need somebody to push you. I know a lot of guys that run that. Usually they go in a group, have a couple guys, so one person usually does push them up and back from the starting line and stuff like that from the pits. So it's not that big of a deal if you have people with you. If you're a one-man show, you don't have anybody that can push you back, a slider with a ride back is a pretty good route to go. But overall, I mean, that kind of sums it up. The sliders, pretty nice way to go this year. I actually thought that burnout was going to be a lot harder to engage because I'm used to revving up and then dumping the clutch and just letting the tire start going. So I thought that it was going to be a lot harder than it was, but it just takes some getting used to. So, I mean, second burnout was a lot better, a lot more tire smoke. I'm glad that this tire is going to be going because the little bit of cinders on the road, because we've had snow and ice here already, did a little number on the tire. There's some marks in it pretty good from the everything. But the tire's nice and sticky now, so I can't really say anything negative in that fact. But I hope this is a little sum up. I've just been dying to do a burnout on this bike, so that was kind of the excuse for doing a slider video. But yeah, I'll let you guys go. Hope you liked the video. We'll have more coming up because we're going to really start going gung-ho on swapping parts from Pinky to the Turbo Busa and getting that set up. I just have to get some stuff here to get the tail buttoned up, and then once the tail's buttoned up, I'm going to start pulling swing arm components off and getting these things set up, because we do have a good bit of work to do, but not an overwhelming amount, just like I think a really good solid weekend, and we can knock it out. So we'll see what happens. But as always, guys, like I said, I hope you liked the video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. You know anything more about the bikes, about the channel, about the parts we run, check the descriptions and drop comments down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And as always, guys, ride safe, ride smart, always wear your helmet. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.